French President Emmanuel Macron is terrified of a clause in the Brexit deal that France has fought against for 40 years, according to Conservative Brexit-backing MP Neil O'Brien.
Tory MP reveals why Macron hates UK's Brexit deal.
Something like this is going to be the way that we bring the very divided, Andrew's right, the very divided country back together. And in terms of the backstop, I mean, I think the backstop is like France's worst nightmare. And if we ended up in it, which I don't think we necessarily will, we would have complete tariff-free access to the European Union, but not have to obey new EU laws. That is what the French have been working for 40 years to try and avoid.
France has fought for 40 years against Britain striking a deal that would hand them frictionless trade with the EU without the laws. According to Tory MP Neil O'Brien, who voted leave in the referendum, the contentious backstop agreement is Emmanuel Macron's worst nightmare. Despite what hardline Brexiteers claim, Mr. O'Brien claims that the backstop could actually hand Britain a huge economic boost while tearing at the fabric of the EU. Speaking on BBC's Week in Westminster, Mr. O'Brien said he would have taken this deal if the EU offered Britain this before the referendum. He explained, "The backstop is France's worst nightmare. If we ended up in it, which I don't think we will, we would have complete tariff-free access to the EU but not have to obey any new laws. That is what the French has been working for 40 years to try and avoid."
Fishing boss blasts desperate Macron over fishing threats.
If the UK insists and maintains its red line of retaining control of who fishes in our waters and for what and when, that is something Macron could do nothing about, and it would damage his fleet enormously from day one within hours if they couldn't get into our waters. You have to remember, of course, that Macron, well, as we know, he's in desperate political problems himself. He's reacted to the situation in his own streets with a great deal of popular discontent to try and distract attention by waving sort of bully boy threats to other countries like ours. So be aware of where he's coming from. I don't think he's thought it through, and he's certainly not thought it through with his own fishermen, because the last thing they want is to be denied access to our waters.
This comes as Mr. Macron has desperately sought to shut down Theresa May's hopes of securing meaningful changes to the agreement. The centrist French leader was previously heavily criticised by British Brexiteers after he appeared to signal that France would threaten Britain into giving up fishing water access. Theresa May has privately warned Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel that the Brexit deal is dead unless they compromise, according to Bloomberg. European leaders humiliated the Prime Minister earlier this week when they rebuffed her requests for more concessions.
Macron wanted UK to suffer in negotiations, says expert.
It's not just a question of wanting Britain to suffer, although Mr. Macron suggested that he thought they should suffer, didn't he?
No.
He said, Brexit shows us one thing: it's not easy to exit the European Union, not without cost, not without consequences.
Is that false?
Well, the suggestion is that he wanted Britain to pay that cost.
The suggestion is it's a matter of fact. Leaving the EU is a complicated process. I don't think that anybody on either side of the channel would deny that. Do you know? Do you know anybody who would actually say that the process of leaving the EU is an easy one?
Well, actually, some people in this country, in Britain, certainly said it was an easy one, but they've been proved wrong.
Mrs May is concerned that if the deal can't be rescued, then the UK will crash out of the bloc without a deal. The backstop is the main stumbling block in the negotiations, with the agreement intended to prevent a hard border in Ireland. Mrs May originally postponed a vote on her deal scheduled for earlier this week, but without any EU compromises, the deal is still expected to be defeated in the Commons. There is a growing split within the cabinet between those pushing for a second referendum and those who are leaning towards a managed no-deal exit. 5 ministers, including Chancellor Philip Hammond and Work and Pensions Secretary Amber Rudd, are leaning reluctantly towards supporting a second referendum. Another group, including Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt, Liz Truss, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and Leader of the Commons Andrea Leadsom, is willing to leave without a deal.
Thank you for your time. Subscribe for more upcoming news.